The sun had barely begun to peek over the horizon, casting a golden glow across the sleepy town. Its streets, usually bustling with activity by midday, were silent, save for the occasional chirp of a bird. In the park, where the first light of the day met the coolness of the morning air, a lone figure sat on a weathered bench. Sarah, a girl no older than 14, seemed almost out of place in such a peaceful setting. Her clothes, worn and faded, seemed to tell a story of hardship and struggle. Beside her, curled up in a ball, was a dog, Scrappy, with matted fur and eyes that seemed to mirror Sarah's own silent sorrow. The dog, a mutt of indeterminate breed, lay there motionless, his chest rising and falling steadily with each breath. His name, as Sarah had often whispered to him in the quiet of the park, was Buddy. He was all she had left. As the first few townspeople started to wander through the park, none paid much attention to Sarah, the homeless girl with the dog. They'd seen her before, but this morning something felt different. Sarah didn't seem like her usual self. Her eyes were distant, as though she was lost in a place far beyond the park bench. Officer Michaels, patrolling his usual route, noticed her immediately. He had seen her before, of course, but today there was an unsettling stillness in the air that piqued his curiosity. Sarah wasn't just another face in the crowd. She was a mystery, and Officer Michaels had always prided himself on solving mysteries, no matter how small. He approached the bench slowly, his footsteps muffled by the soft earth beneath him. Sarah didn't immediately look up. It was as if she didn't even hear him approaching. When she finally met his gaze, it was as though she had been caught in some deep thought, but she quickly masked it with a thin, forced smile. "Morning, Sarah. How are you today?" Officer Michaels asked, his voice warm and friendly. Sarah's lips parted, but no words came. She just looked at him, her face unreadable. Then, after a long silence, she muttered softly, almost as if to herself, "I'm fine. I'm just waiting." "Waiting for what?" Officer Michaels asked, his curiosity getting the better of him. She glanced down at Buddy, who had stirred and was now looking up at her with those soulful eyes. "For him," she said simply, but her voice held a certain sadness, as if the words didn't quite fit the reality. Officer Michaels knelt down to pet the dog, but something in Sarah's eyes told him she wasn't being entirely honest. He had known her for a while, and in all their interactions, he had never once seen her this distant. "Buddy's a good dog," Officer Michaels said, trying to ease the tension. "You know, I've seen you both here a lot. Do you ever think about, finding a place to stay?" Sarah stiffened at his words, the brief moment of warmth vanishing. She quickly turned her gaze back to Buddy, avoiding the officer's eyes. She didn't want to talk about it. Not yet. But as Officer Michaels was about to ask another question, Sarah suddenly spoke, her voice barely above a whisper, but the words pierced the silence like a dagger. "Buddy's not the same one," she said, her eyes downcast, her fingers nervously brushing the dog's fur. Officer Michaels froze. The air around him seemed to go still. His mind raced as he processed what she had just said. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice laced with confusion. But Sarah didn't respond immediately. Instead, she simply continued to pet Buddy, her expression unreadable. It was as if she had said too much and now regretted it. The words hung in the air like a dark cloud, and Officer Michaels knew something wasn't right. But he didn't yet understand what. "Cliffhanger." Sarah looked up, her eyes wide with sudden intensity. "You don't know the truth about Buddy," she whispered. "You never will." In the hours that followed, Officer Michaels couldn't shake the image of Sarah's face, the mixture of pain, fear, and guilt that had flashed in her eyes when she spoke of Buddy. He spent the rest of his shift distracted, unable to focus on anything other than those cryptic words. Later that evening, Officer Michaels found himself sitting alone in his small office, reviewing old case files, but his mind kept wandering back to Sarah. Who was she really? What did she mean by Buddy's not the same one? It was a riddle, and it gnawed at him relentlessly. The next morning, as the sun rose and bathed the town in warm light, Officer Michaels decided to pay Sarah another visit. He wasn't sure what he was looking for, but something told him that if he didn't pursue this, he might regret it. The whole situation felt off. Something was buried deep within Sarah's past. something she wasn't ready to reveal. As he approached the park bench again, he noticed Sarah sitting with Buddy, just as she had the previous day. But there was something different about her today. She seemed more withdrawn, her posture rigid, as if bracing herself for something. Officer Michaels cleared his throat to announce his presence. "Sarah, you mind if we talk for a minute?" he asked gently. She looked up, her eyes tired and wary, but she nodded. "I suppose we can talk." Sitting beside her, Officer Michaels decided to start at the beginning. "I've known you for a while now, Sarah. You and Buddy, you're always here. But you've never told me much about your past. I think it's time you did." For a long moment, Sarah didn't respond. She stared at the ground, as if weighing whether to open up or keep her secrets locked away. Finally, she spoke. "My name isn't really Sarah," she confessed. "That's not the name my parents gave me. But it's the name I've gone by since I ended up on the streets. My real name is Emily." Officer Michaels listened intently, sensing that she was about to reveal something even deeper. Sarah, or Emily, began to tell him the story of her family, how she had once lived a happy life, surrounded by love, until tragedy struck. Her mother passed away suddenly, and her father, unable to cope, withdrew from her emotionally. It was during this time of hardship that she and Buddy became inseparable. Buddy wasn't just a pet. He was her anchor, her only friend in a world that had become too difficult to bear. But when the unthinkable happened, that fateful night when Buddy was hit by a car, Emily's world fell apart. She couldn't cope with the loss. Buddy's death. "I couldn't accept it," Emily whispered, her voice cracking. "I searched for him. I kept hoping he would come back, but he never did. So I found another dog, another Buddy." Officer Michaels' eyes widened as the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. But what Emily didn't know was that this new dog wasn't just a look-alike. There was something far more mysterious about it. Something he still didn't fully understand. Cliffhanger. Emily's face turned pale as she suddenly looked over at Buddy, the dog now staring intently at something off in the distance. "He knows," she muttered, her voice filled with fear. "He knows what happened." The following days passed in a blur for Officer Michaels. He couldn't stop thinking about Emily and her confession about Buddy. There was something deeper at play here, something he couldn't quite put his finger on. She had been so convincing. Yet there was a part of him that wanted to believe it was all in her head. The idea that Buddy, her beloved dog, had somehow returned after his death seemed impossible. But the more he thought about it, the more he felt that Emily wasn't lying. She wasn't simply a grieving girl with a delusion. There was something else at play, something that stretched far beyond his understanding. After his shift, Officer Michaels decided to take matters into his own hands. He would dig deeper into Emily's story and the truth about Buddy. His first stop was a local animal shelter, where he knew Emily had adopted her new dog. The workers there had always thought Emily was a bit odd, but they never questioned her. Now, Officer Michaels needed to know more. He spoke with Jane, the shelter manager, who had been working there for years. She remembered Emily well, how quiet and withdrawn she was, how she had appeared the day she adopted Buddy. Jane recalled that Emily had been adamant about adopting a dog that resembled her old Buddy, though she never said why. Did she ever mention anything strange about the dog after she took him home? Officer Michaels asked, hoping for some insight. Jane hesitated, her eyes shifting nervously. "Well, now that you mention it, there was something odd. Buddy was always different from the other dogs. He was unusually calm, almost like he already knew Emily. He'd follow her everywhere. And he didn't act like other dogs. He seemed to understand things beyond what a normal dog would." The conversation unsettled Officer Michaels. Could it be possible that this was more than just a coincidence? Was there a supernatural explanation? Or was Emily simply projecting her grief onto an innocent dog? With a feeling of unease in his gut, Officer Michaels decided to follow up with the town's vet. Dr. Stevens had been practicing the town for decades and was known for his expertise. If anyone could offer a scientific explanation, it would be him. At the clinic, Dr. Stevens listened intently as Officer Michaels explained the situation. The vet didn't seem surprised, but he didn't dismiss the idea out of hand either. "You know," Dr. Stevens began, "I've seen some strange things over the years, but this This is something else. That dog, the one Emily adopted, he's definitely not the same age as the original Buddy. He's much younger, at least 2 years younger. But Emily insists he's the same dog. It's like she's convinced herself of it. So you're saying there's no way it could be the same dog? Officer Michaels asked, his voice heavy with skepticism. Exactly, Dr. Stevens confirmed. But there's one thing I've never been able to explain. This dog, Buddy, he's healthier than any dog I've seen in a long time. And there's something in his eyes, officer. It's like he's wise beyond his years. The word struck Officer Michaels like a bolt of lightning. Was it possible that Emily's story wasn't as far-fetched as it seemed? But the questions only multiplied. If this wasn't the original Buddy, then what was happening? And why had Emily insisted on keeping the truth hidden? Cliffhanger. Later that evening, as Officer Michaels sat in his car, contemplating what he'd learned, his phone rang. It was a call he had been dreading. "We found something you need to see," the voice on the other end said urgently. "Come to the old park by the river. Now." The town's mood had shifted. Whispers spread like wildfire, fueled by the mystery surrounding Emily and her dog, Buddy. People began to question what was really going on. Some believed Emily was simply a troubled girl, lost in grief, holding on to a false hope that her dog had returned. Others, though, started to think there was something much deeper at play, a mystery beyond their understanding. Officer Michaels could sense a divide within the town. People began to either rally behind Emily or doubt her completely. Some argued that she needed professional help, while others felt she had simply been overlooked and misunderstood for too long. As the story of Emily's mysterious dog spread, the town became more and more polarized. The town sheriff called a meeting to discuss what action to take. A decision was on the horizon. Should Emily be placed into care, or should she be allowed to stay on the streets with her dog? The town's officials were growing concerned that Emily's grip on reality was slipping. Emily, however, remained steadfast. She continued to visit the park each day, sitting with Buddy, as if the world outside of that park didn't matter. Despite the growing pressure in the town's division, she wasn't ready to give up on her story. She knew the truth, even if no one else did. Meanwhile, Officer Michaels found himself torn. He had come to care for Emily. She wasn't just another case. She was a girl who had suffered loss, a girl who had been abandoned by the world. But the more he delved into her story, the more it seemed like he was uncovering a mystery he couldn't solve. On a particularly tense afternoon, Officer Michaels approached Emily in the park once more. She was sitting with Buddy, who was now staring at the spot where Emily had buried the original dog. For the first time, Officer Michaels felt a chill run down his spine. There was something unsettling about Buddy's gaze. It was as if the dog was searching for something, as if he knew something that they didn't. "Emily," Officer Michaels said softly, trying to keep his voice calm, "there's something I need to tell you. I've looked into the history of the dog you adopted, and it's not Buddy. It can't be. The dog is younger, and there's no record of an accident that would explain what you've been through." Emily's eyes darkened, and she clenched her fists. "You don't understand. He is Buddy. He is... Her words trailed off as Buddy began to growl, low and menacing. His eyes locked on something in the distance. It was a strange, chilling sound, and it sent shivers down Officer Michael's spine. "What is it, Buddy?" Emily whispered, but the dog didn't stop growling. Instead, he leapt to his feet and sprinted toward the trees, dragging Emily along with him. "Cliffhanger!" Officer Michaels ran after them, calling for Emily, but when he reached the trees, he stopped dead in his tracks. There, in the dirt, was something that froze his blood. It was a collar that looked almost exactly like the one Buddy had worn. But it wasn't just any collar. It had a tag that read Buddy. Yet, there was something wrong about it. The tag seemed too old. Officer Michaels stood there, staring at the collar in his hands, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. The mystery that had surrounded Emily and her dog had only deepened. Was Buddy really alive, or had something far more sinister happened? The more he examined the collar, the more questions arose. How could a collar that looked so old be linked to the dog that Emily had been caring for? It didn't make sense. He felt as if he was on the edge of something monumental, But he couldn't put all the pieces together. Emily appeared beside him, her face pale and her expression unreadable. She took the collar from his hands, her fingers trembling. "I knew you would find it," she whispered. "I didn't want you to know. But now you have to understand." She sat down in the dirt, and Officer Michaels joined her, his mind racing. "What do you mean, Emily? What is going on?" Emily's voice broke as she spoke. "Buddy didn't just die. He was taken by someone who wanted to use him for something I couldn't understand. I thought I could replace him, but deep down I knew I couldn't. I couldn't let go, officer. I couldn't let go of the love we shared." As the truth came to light, the mystery began to unravel. Buddy, the dog she had been searching for all along, hadn't just disappeared. He had been taken for a purpose she could never have imagined. The story ends with Emily standing, looking at the collar in her hands, a tear falling down her cheek. For the first time, she knew the truth, and now it was time for her to heal. Sometimes, the hardest thing is accepting the loss. It's accepting the truth. Emily had finally found her way back, but not before uncovering the truth that would forever change her and the town.